Hey, this is Bob Farrell with Song Planet. You know what? Today on Behind the Songs, you're going to get to hear and hear and hear some Gordon Kennedy, and you're going to love it. So check it out. Hey everybody, Bob Farrell here. We're in Nashville. We're at 16th and Grand, which is a performance room and a coffee house. It's not quite open, but they're starting to do some cool events, kind of like what we're doing today. And they kind of have given me a carte blanche to do whatever kind of content shows I want to do. And one of them I really was excited about doing was talking to the people behind the songs. Kind of the unsung heroes, if you will, okay? Because the people, a lot of times you're humming along to something and you don't even know whose song it was. And a lot of those guys are my buddies, and they live right here. This is one of them. This is Gordon Kennedy, everybody.
Bob, thank you for having me. Yeah.
Good to have you here, man. I get to have lunch every time he's home off the road. Anyway, with Gordon, we have a little get together with the old guys from early Christian music days, Michael Lamartian and Chuck Girard and all these great characters. In fact, you and I were there at the first one, weren't we, Gordon? You and me and Chad.
Yeah, there was like five of us. Yeah.
Said, this was
Tim
fun.
Archer.
Huh?
Seemed like Tim
Archer was there, and Brian.
Yeah.
And Brian Mason, and we said, let's do this again, this is fun. The next time we had about 10 or 12, the next time was 15 or 30.
Now I can't get in anymore.
You can't get in anymore.
No, it's too full.
Hey, listen, I thought, well, I say all that to say, I thought I knew a lot about Gordon because I've known him since the mid-90s, and I knew he was writing, you know, his skivvies off all the time and getting cool cuts, but I couldn't believe when you sent me your bio. I want to read for a second a couple of things. I'll let you chime in a minute.
Okay.
2 Grammys,
yes,
right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
One of them for a Song of the Year in 1997 at the Grammys for Eric Clapton's #1 hit, "Changed the World," which he wrote with Wayne Kirkpatrick
And Tommy Sims. Yep.
As a writer, he's had cuts on Eric Clapton, Bonnie Raitt, Don Henley, Stevie Nicks, Garth Brooks, Bruce Hornsby, Ricky Skaggs, Faith Hill, Tim McGraw, Alison Krauss, Nickel Creek, Peter Frampton, and others. He's a world-class guitar player, so he ends up on a lot of sessions, and he gets to play on the road with a lot of different people. Right now, you're out with Frampton.
Doing acoustic shows. We just finished our 3rd leg. We do a spring and a fall show because he, puts the band, the full production in the summer tours.
Oh, okay, does the sheds with all the band.
Yeah.
You go out and do acoustic.
So we just finished our 3rd run, and we will begin the 4th one here in Nashville next March 26th at the Schermerhorn.
I'm going to be there, buddy.
Come see it. It's great.
He's played for Peter Frampton, Don Henley, Jewel, Garth Brooks, Faith Hill, Shadaisy. I got to have Shadaisy cut one time. Kenny Loggins, Michael McDonald, Leanne Rimes, Bruce Hornsby, Ricky Skaggs, Little Big Town. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
I do whatever they let me do.
Yeah,
that's the short answer.
I want you to tell me, you moved to Nashville with family from, you were raised when you were a baby.
I was born in Shreveport, but I moved to Nashville when I was a year old.
A year old, okay. So you came to Nashville, and your dad, Jerry, and your mom was a singer.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And her name was?
Linda Brannon. She went by Brannon.
And so they didn't have any money, and they just were.
Shelby Singleton talked them into giving it a shot. They'd performed on the Louisiana Hayride. I think they actually were even doing like a duet performance for Johnny Horton.
So it's a lot. So anyway,
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is that Gordon's music roots and around Music Row and the music business, and his dad, Jerry Kennedy, was a producer, a writer, a sideman. I mean, he did everything. He ran Smash Records.
Well, Mercury Records. At some point, he moved here to be a player, and then he became a producer, along with that. And at some point, he became the head of the Mercury Records office in Nashville and ran it for 21 years.
So he was working with all kinds of greats. So
yeah.
Who were some of the people you were seeing as a kid?
As a player, he played on Orbison's Pretty Woman, Elvis' Good Luck Charm, Stand By Your Man, Leroy Van Dyke, Just Walk On By. He's the dobro on Harper Valley PTA. He played on Blonde on Blonde, Bob Dylan, Ringo Starr's 2nd solo album.
That's amazing.
And then as a producer, and I think he maybe was like 24 or 25 years old when he produced Roger Miller's records, and so he produced King of the Road. And
that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
So you were elbowing in the studio sometimes? Did Dad take
You know, he would ask me, he would ask me, guess who I'm playing for tonight? The King, he would say.
Wanna go?
But he did ask me one time if I wanted to go to the studio and meet Jerry Lee Lewis, and I did not want to meet him. I'd seen a picture of him and was too young to understand what that red eye from the camera, this flash standpoint was, and thought he was evil,
Yeah.
But I met him, and then of course wanted to meet Roger Miller, which we did get to do, very small kid. Wanted to meet the guy that sang Dang Me.
Mm-hmm. So, the Roots, all the atmosphere, all the stuff going on around you, you went to Brentwood Academy, and then you went to Belmont.
Yeah.
So you're a graduate of, what did you study at Belmont?
Well, I was in the music business school there. Okay. I didn't graduate.
But you started playing sessions young.
I was actually the first master recording session I ever played on was a Johnny Rodriguez record, and that was the summer after my junior year in high school. But I played on.
Not very many people can say that, Gordon.
And I played on Reba McEntire's first top 5 and first #1 record, and those were Belmont days,
So you're in college and you're playing for Reba. Did you go out on the road with Reba?
No.
No.
I never went on the road with any of those. No, because my father kept saying to me, "You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that." And I didn't really go on the road ever in my life until I joined Whiteheart.
Until Whiteheart.
Yeah.
Okay, so you knew Dan Huff, who's now a big world famous.
He and I went to Brentwood Academy.
I knew Dan when he was in high school, and he'd come out and play demos for me at the old Gold Mine.
See that? Well, he and I were in high school together.
Really?
Yeah. So we had a group, and he was somebody
you guys were in a band together?
Oh yeah. Oh. And he was critical in my.
That's two pretty killer guitar players in one band.
But he was pushing me. I was if I was any good at all, I was just trying to keep up with him. He was, and still is a world-class guitar player. Stayed friends over the years. He's hired me. Some of that stuff you read, he hired me to come play on, which I thought was insane. Because why would you want me to come play on you? But he just wanted to do stuff in the studio together.
I've heard you play. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. About age. Okay, tell me, you came out of Belmont and you were trying to get a pub deal. Were you trying to do sideman work, session work? Where were you?
I think I wanted to be a guitar player first, and then at some point I thought maybe I'll write songs just to sort of supplement that. While I'm at this.
So how young? When you picked up the guitar and went, I like this?
Probably over the course of my life, there was a few times I picked it up where it didn't really go anywhere. I mean, my father would, get me and my brother Brian those old Harmony acoustic guitars. Shelby's the youngest.
He's the youngest. Okay.
So he's in diapers and maybe an infant at the point where Brian and I get these guitars for Christmas one year. But I mean, Brian is so young that he was trying to put the guitar in the case wrong, butt into the guitar by the skinny neck case, So we were too little,
Yeah.
And then we got that was the Harmony guitar, and then we got a Decca acoustic guitar, a handful of years later, and those stayed in the closet, no case, with the G.I. Joes and all that stuff. And so those were there, but they were just over there,
Yeah.
And then at some point on a family trip to Shreveport, my cousin Randy, who was about 4 years older than me, I walked into their house at my Aunt Billy's and saw that he was playing electric guitar and was listening to Jimi Hendrix and Steppenwolf records and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've got somebody in my family that's gotten a jump on me.
Yeah.
My dad's a guitar player. That should be me. So there was a little bit of that starting to happen.
Okay.
Subsequent trip back to the neighborhood where I went to school up until 3rd grade, and in the middle of that year moved from Goodlettsville to Nashville and lost all the contact with my old friends. But that summer went back. Our mom took us back, and then the kid across the street was taking guitar lessons.
See, I just wouldn't have thought all that, because I would have thought, I probably should have known better, but I just thought growing up in Jerry Kennedy's house, there was just, you were fostered to the guitar, but you were an athlete too.
But what you're talking about though is absolutely 100% true. The memories of the home in Goodlettsville that we came up in, and those are my earliest childhood memories, being in that home, was coming into the basement out of the garage, and there would be my dad's guitar cases, maybe an amp, There's an upright piano on the wall right here and a jukebox on the wall over there that spun 45 records. And so I knew how to reach behind there with a little toggle switch and turn the jukebox on.
Listen to Johnny Horton.
Well, I would listen to Dad playing Willie and the Hand Jive, Buster Brown, Fannie Mae, Roger Miller records.
That would have blown my mind in Lubbock, Texas if that had been going on. I mean, Buddy Holly lived across the alley from me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even a first grader when that first started, and I would tool down the alleyway in my little bike and stop and go,
well,
whoa, that was that. And that was Peggy Sue going on.
Well, and then, so you're confronted with that every time you come in the house. And then Dad would bring home reel tapes of the sessions they'd done that day on all these artists, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roger Miller, but he would also bring home the first Beatles album and the Hey Jude single, and some of that stuff you would marry into the music. So I, as my bookends as a songwriter, really my earliest influences are Roger Miller and the Beatles. So, those are setting the bar.
Okay, as a songwriter, I love that.
Oh, of course.
Because I think that's the best stuff to cut your teeth on, man.
Absolutely.
Because it's primo writing.
And there was always this desire in me, even when I was a little kid, I knew how to turn the jukebox on, and I would lay down on the floor in front of the jukebox and feel the floor shake. But I would lay there and dream about doing this myself someday.
Okay, so capture that age, what that was, you think it was. Was that 10?
7, 8 years old.
Okay, so fast forward to when you feel like you picked up the guitar and you started doing something that wasn't...
Yeah, probably 11.
It wasn't a Beatleton, it was something Gordon, came out of Gordon.
Well, no, I would have to skip through a couple of things that were, like when I turned 11, that's when I opened up the Mel Bay Fun with Guitar book and started thinking I'm going to teach myself some things here. I didn't want to ask my dad, but here, this is something funny though.
That's great.
When I came back from the trip to Goodlettsville, back to see our old friends on the dead end street there, and the Scott Culberson, who was across the street from me, his father's an Eastern Airlines pilot, and he's getting guitar lessons. And I'm thinking, now this is another moment for me, like, this should be me, So I come back home kind of brooding, and my grandmother and my mom are there and ask me what's wrong. I said, well, Scott's dad is getting him guitar lessons, kind of mad. And they said, well, why don't, my grandma said, well, you should get your daddy to teach you guitar. He's a guitar picker. And I said, this is according to my grandmother, I don't remember saying this, he won't teach me because he wants to be the best dang guitar picker in the world. So I had reasoned in my mind that he doesn't want me to
He's
play.
afraid you're going to smoke it.
Yeah, whatever. And so, but at the point where I turned 15, my dad gives me a Telecaster for Christmas, a Fender Telecaster, and that was it.
That was it?
That was it, yeah. From then on, that was it. I've never done anything else.
When you feel like you came to that spot in the road where you were, man, I can do this, and I want to do this, I love this, and in fact, I've got my own ideas, and I think I want to write something. When do you think that happened?
Well,
I know what happened to me. But.
I wanted just to reverse what you just said, but
okay.
But I mean, it's an intimidating thing all the while. Growing up and having a dad that's done all of that I mentioned.
Yeah.
I want to do this. I want to ask him, can I borrow that guitar? But I'm also afraid I'm not ever going to do anything near as cool, But he was always great about...
That's interesting play going on there.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, he gives me the guitar for Christmas when I'm 15. 2 months later, I'm standing on stage at my high school playing a show in front of the school, like a talent show kind of thing, and Jerry Reed's daughter, Sedina's singing lead, and Joe Mascao's son, Joey's on drums. And so we're all these second generation kids, and my dad is sitting on the front row and turns and looked at a friend of mine sitting next to him and said, I didn't know he knew how to play the guitar. So I didn't want him to know that I was trying, and so I was learning quietly off,
Were Shelby and Brian the same way? Your brothers?
I was just talking to a friend today about how creative the three of us were, to the point where when we would buy some toy that had an instruction sheet with it, we never would read it. We would completely reinvent the game. Whatever they meant for us to do, no, we're going to do this. So that became, part of it was because we were sort of isolated where we lived and weren't any neighbor kids anymore once we moved away from Goodlettsville. So we just learned we're just going to make this up as we go.
Did you ever do a little brother band?
Oh, of course.
Y'all the Bee Gees?
No, we were Chuck Wagon and the Wheels. And we would go back to Brentwood Academy and play. We'd wear the cowboy hats that were up to here, but we were always the champions of country and wrestling music. And so we had the wrestling belts. Yeah, country and wrestling music. So this was always. I would say there was just this extremely creative atmosphere. Plus, we were getting a box, the size of like this, that would come to the house quarterly, full of every piece of product that Mercury, Smash, Philips, and all the subsidiary labels were sending out part of their product.
To the product.
We got those, and so we looked like three soldiers with letters from home. I'll take the Bachman Turner Overdrive Rush, and Shelby's got Confunction and Barcades, and Brian wants Mo Bandy and the country stuff. So we had that, and a dad who, like I said, would bring home this music.
I just your bio just touched the surface of it. As soon as I read it, I just thought that is a very, very unique situation, because there's just not even in Nashville City here, I haven't met that many people that are quite like your background, and so it's intriguing. I didn't meet you till we started doing some stuff over there. By the way, that's gone.
Oh,
the old
dugout.
Dugout's gone. And you were hanging with Brown and Wayne and doing some writing during that period.
Right.
But you had already come off a lot of experience by then. You've been on the road with Whiteheart.
I was in that for 6 years, yeah.
Yeah. So you cut your road teeth big time, and you started figuring out what the road was about.
Yeah.
And that was between
84 to 90. And
was it fun?
It was fun. It meant something, which was good, because I would not have stayed with it 6 years if it didn't, because for the people that would say, oh, well, isn't Christian music just like any other business? You're in it to make money. And I can guarantee you that I wasn't, because I didn't make any for those 6 years. I just wasn't.
At what point in your life did you come to the Lord?
Oh, I got baptized when I was 14, but I always knew Jesus because of my grandmother. She would speak to me, and to the point of where he was so real that I would start looking for him. When's he coming in? So from the time I'm little, that's who was talking to me about Jesus was my grandmother.
So baptized at 14.
Yeah.
But, you had a real wide interest and range of music all around you all the time, and your interest in what you like to listen to was real wide. Mine was the same way.
Yeah.
But at the point at which you came out of Belmont, I guess, and did you start traveling with Whiteheart before you got out of Belmont?
After. Yeah, I was
soon
after I left Belmont. Right at that same time, I was in a band with Larry Stewart, and so we were trying to put together this thing.
Tell everybody who Larry Stewart.
Well, Larry ended up. Well, he ended up, after we were doing this thing for a couple years, getting pulled away to be the lead singer in a 7-album deal with RCA for the country group Restless Heart.
Restless Heart.
So, but we had Dave Ennis, the keyboard player from that group, was also in this other group.
Van and Dave, the guys that I wrote with. They wrote Bluest Eyes of Texas about my wife Jane.
Yeah.
So, and I was around, I used to write with Larry Dietrich.
Yeah.
And, so
John.
I was around about the same time. John Dietrich, fun times, man.
Yeah.
Real heady times. So, after you were with the band with Stewart, you decided to...
Well, David Huff was our drummer.
David Huff.
And I had gone to high school with Dan, like I said, and David and Ronnie Huff. And at some point... I'm sharing an apartment with Dan Huff and Mark Gersmel. That's how I meet him. And at some point, Dan is going to go. He wants to go to L.A. to do session work, and asked me, after he'd done the first 2 albums in the group, Whiteheart, asked me if I would sub for him for 3 shows in 1984. And like I said, I quit the band 6 years later. He never came back to the group, and
so you've kind of fell in love with the group.
But I sort of just fell into it accidentally. And,
okay.
But it was.
But I remember that time real well. I had already gotten off the road for a while. Jane and I got off the road in '91.
Yeah.
Kept real busy all during the '70s and '80s. But there was a period in there after you got off the road. You were kind of probably scrapping and scraping to make a living.
Yeah.
And then you started getting some session work, right?
Yeah, and
little by little.
Well, and also that's another thing too that. I've been a member of the local union here in Nashville since I was 17 years old. But I didn't really, and that was in 1977 that I joined the local here. I didn't start making session money on the card until 1996. Now, I would do like Reba McEntire, those kinds of sessions and things like that. But I mean, once I joined Whiteheart, and then it was pretty well set before me this path where I would be mostly networking with contemporary Christian music artists and things. And they, you know, I enjoyed the music, but did not enjoy scale, which is the suggested minimum wage. So I didn't really make any money doing session work either for a number of years, you know, until '96 when those labels went signatory with, you know.
Okay, so I want to look at something that it reminded me of a song that I had on Winona called "I Will Be," but it said here in your bio that changed the world.
Yeah.
From '92 to '95. It got picked up by Winona, but it was in a
well,
took a while to come around kind of thing.
Wayne Kirkpatrick and I had started a band in 1991 because we were doing enough session work together, and he and Brown hired me to play on a Kim Hill record, and then he hired me, Wayne did, to come play on Susan Ashton's first record. So now Wayne and I are just me and him in the studio by ourselves.
So did Change the World hatch from a guitar idea?
I'll get to it.
Okay.
Because, okay, so Wayne and I are in the studio, and at some point we just both think we need to work on more than just this album together. And so let's write songs together, let's put a group together. So we had this little band together, and then when we tracked the first 4 songs for that project, Tommy Sims and Chris McHugh came to play on the tracking date with us. We had 4 songs we were recording that Wayne and I brought into this thing, and then on just some downtime during that session, Tommy picked up a guitar and said, "Say, fellas, is this an idea that this group could pursue doing?" And he had mapped out this chord progression, and he had a title.
He did have the title, so Tommy had the title.
He had a title, yeah, Changed the World, but he was playing this already. And then he did the same thing over the 4 chord. And then for the chorus, right? Well, and as he's saying, is this something this group could do? And what we were working on at the time was like, remember the Rembrandts, Toy Matinee, and of course the Beatles, very influenced by all that stuff. Well, I'm sitting there thinking, well, that sounds like McCartney enough that I like it, and Wayne's probably over there going, that sounds enough like Fogelberg and James Taylor that I like it. You know, Tommy's probably playing it for us going, I hope this doesn't sound too much like Stevie Wonder for these guys to, you know. But that's the great thing about this idea and what it became later. It's like transcends one genre, one artist, one style, one period of time and all that. This could be a 50-year-old song, you know, or it could be this week. So that's how the thing started. At some point, Wayne would ask Tommy, put that on tape. Of course, you'll have to do a whole nother video study on what tape is now, but put it on tape, and then let me see if I can do something with it. And then Wayne would subsequently write a chorus lyric, and then all but one line of what ended up being the second verse lyrics. And then it would go dormant again. And then I would grab the thing at some point from Wayne, where are you on that? And then he would hand over to me what he had. So I wrote the first verse lyric, his missing line from the second verse, and then finished the music and cut a demo with Tommy.
So all that was over a 3-year period?
That was over 1 year.
Oh, okay. From
April of '91, and Tommy and I demoed the thing in April of '92. And none of us were in the room together when we wrote.
So was it on hold a long time?
Well, what happened is that Doug Howard had been in the tape copy room when I was writing at Polygram, and he left a year before me. I left in '90 to go get a law degree in D.C., and he came back to run Polygram Music. And he called me in the fall of '92. What are you doing right now? He said. I said, nothing. You signed with the publisher? No. Well, listen, I'm coming back to run Polygram. I was like, what? He said, and I want you over at Polygram. I want you back over there because I like what you do. Now, I would hand my songs into him all the years I wrote there, and he probably was the last person to hear most of what I did because there wasn't a lot of Nashville country things that I was turning in. And he said, I want you back over here because I like what you do. And the first song I turned into him was the demo for Change the World. Now, I said, can you...
doesn't hurt.
So I said, can you get this to Clapton? Let's see what we can do. Well, what happened was Don Potter walks in one day looking for songs for Winona. That's the only song he left with, and he took it to Tony to put it on hold, and then Winona, firm hold. And then a bunch of stuff started happening in her personal life and things. It caused that record to come out 3 years later. And the whole time we've been told we're going to have a single with her.
I know.
And then they put out 1, then 2, then 3 singles, and it wasn't, none of them were ours. So by the time we were thinking, dang, we are not going to get a single, I'm sitting in the studio, the Dugout, with Tommy one day working on a Nicole Smith record, and he just casually says to me, GK, we're going to get another cut on Change the World. I said, really, who? He said, Eric Clapton. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I do.
You just not telling me?
Right, so no, that's what I said to Doug Howard the day I turned it in 3 years before that.
Dude, why didn't you give me this to begin with?
So it was just happening right then, summer of '96. So spring of '92, demo. Summer of '96, cut comes out, movie comes out. That fall, nominated. And then go to the Grammys the following February. Phenomenon. With John
Great
Travolta.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit movie.
Yeah. So
Good movie.
but it was, you know, it's one of those.
Process.
Yeah.
Well, Bob Farrell, you know what? So excited what you're doing here in Nashville, man.
Thanks, buddy.
And you're a legend yourself. I call you the godfather of songwriters.
Okay.
Yeah. or the
Just because I know all of them?
well, more like the Forrest Gump of songwriters. But I tell you what, Bob, you know, the interviews that you're doing and these legends, you know, the songwriters, incredible musicians. Oh my gosh. And who have you got here? But
I've got a good buddy that I've known since the mid-90s, and he co-writes. He works with a lot of people. He's a great session player. He works on the road with Peter Frampton. I mean, just an amazing talent. And he comes from kind of Music City, Music Row royalty. His dad, Jerry Kennedy, kind of, you know, was back in the days of Elvis and Johnny Horton and everything. And so I've always respected what Gordon does. But this tune will blow you away, as they say. And it was a 1997 Grammy Award-winning song that was in the movie Phenomenon.
Right.
Phenomenon, yeah.
there he is. That's the man talking right there. Gordon Kennedy.
Change. Everybody have a fun time here. Gordon's going to give us a little Change the World.
All right, Gordon Kennedy with Change the World.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. Thank you.
If I could reach the stars, pull one down for you, I shine it on my heart, so you could see the truth, that this love I have inside is everything it seems, but for now I find it's only in my dreams I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby. If I could, I'd change the world. If I could be the king, even for a day, take you as my queen, and I have no other way, and I love to rule in this kingdom he had made. Till then I'll be a fool, wishing for a
guitar, man. To Gordon Kennedy. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, Bob Farrell, thanks so much for coming with me on Song Planet today, Behind the Songs. And I want to see you next time, so check it out right here. That's a take, right?